Hello and welcome to In Conversation with a not so scheduled programme today.
Bit last minute.
Yeah, a bit last minute, but we're happy to be here.
More than happy to be back in the studio today.
This time I'm actually joined by Greg, and Gavin is the absent one.
We try to have two of the three of us here at all times.
He's busy in preparation for his show coming up tomorrow evening, Train Spotting in the Helix. But as I am joined by Greg, I am also joined by a decorated man.
A decorated man. Our second GAA man of the semester. Very similar in a lot of regards, and both 15-year veterans of the inter-county game. Yeah. I think we'll do a reveal column.
And brand new DCU employee, Mr. Jason Sherlock. How are you, Jason?
I'm very good, Colin. Thanks for having me here. And you, Greg? Thanks you.
Thanks very much for coming on. So what I usually ask guests when they come on is, what was the initial thought when I asked you to? You haven't had a lot of time to prepare.
No.
Well, I did give him a brief warning when I met him last Thursday.
Yeah.
Gavin and myself were going off to do Beg, Borrow, Steal. We were going around DCU looking for some donations, and we ran into Jason Sherlock, and I was more happy to get a photo with Jason than to get a donation. But I did mention to him that we would be coming knocking on his door for an interview.
Yeah,
and
well, when I saw you heading off, I wasn't sure whether you were going to get back, Greg. So yeah, but I was pleasantly surprised when I saw the email this morning from Ross connecting us up. So yeah, delighted to be here.
And a big thank you to Ross.
Big thanks to Ross. We did put him live on the spot, live on air, and say, Ross, you are the director of alumni relations. If we ask you to get us some alumni, so he's delivered already.
So Jason, we're going to kick it off. Obviously you're probably most notably known for playing for Dublin for 15 or so years at the senior level, but when did you first get experience with the GAA? What was your first experience with the GAA?
Yeah, well, when I was very young, when I was younger, I lived in Finglas, and my uncles used to bring me to all the Dublin games. I was a member of the Dublin Supporters Club when I was like 5 and 6, so I used to travel around the country to all the games. And I just got a graw for GAA at that stage. I remember going to games and studying the programme, and then if there were ever times I'd get a chance to get autographs and that, I'd have them all there, and I kept them. So to support a team and then to end up playing for the team was definitely a dream come true. So and that kind of happened in a very short period for me. I played Dublin Minor, that was my first contact with Dublin, and at the end of that year we were beaten in an All-Ireland semi-final by Galway, and I got a call kind of towards the end of that summer from the chairman of the club, and he said Dublin would like you to come out for a challenge match. At first I thought it was a bit of a joke, but it turned out it was in 1994, 2 weeks before the All-Ireland final, and Dublin played a challenge match against Meath, and I came on for about 10 or 15 minutes, myself and a guy called Ian Robertson, who's from Ballymun, not too far from here, and we were asked then to train with the team in the 2 weeks prior to the All-Ireland in 1994. So
what was it like coming into a setup like that? Especially at that end of the season, you know.
Oh, it was unbelievable. I remember on the bus going down to Meath, we played in a place called Nobber.
And Brian Farrell territory.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I remember that in the Celebrity Banish store. But I remember just being in awe of the people in the bus, the Keith Barrs and the Charlie Redmonds and John O'Leary's, and just listening to their conversations. So then to go and train with them 2 weeks before an All-Ireland final was just an unbelievable experience. So really enjoyed it, and lucky enough then the following year I was part of the team, and I was preparing properly for an All-Ireland final.
So what's that like? I mean, when we touched with Ross Money, when his first season of Intercounty he won the Leinster title. Your first season you won an All-Ireland title.
You went that step further, yeah.
Like?
Yeah, it was pretty surreal. Again, I suppose people of nowadays, the fans would probably say, well, sure, Dublin win every year, but when you think of it, Dublin hadn't won an All-Ireland since 1983, so it was 12 years between 83 and 95. So to win an All-Ireland in those days, it was very unique for a Dublin point of view. That team itself, they'd been very close in the years beforehand. 1991, people remember it for the Dublin and Meath series. They played, I think, 4 games that year. 92, Dublin were beaten in an All-Ireland final by Donegal. 93, in a semi-final by Derry. 94 by Down in a final. So they'd been knocking on the door without actually getting over it. So to be involved in 95 was just, for me, it was a special thing. But from a Dublin point of view, it was great because they hadn't done it in so long.
I suppose unfortunately so, it didn't really set the standard then as far as the All-Ireland stage because of the 16 years that followed. But you did establish yourself through the 2000s as a dominant team in Leinster. How do you think you established that reign?
Yeah, well, I always say it took me 1 year to win an All-Ireland, and it took me 14 years then to pay for winning that All-Ireland, because, as you say, I suppose it probably gave me a false reality thinking it was going to happen every year, and unfortunately we never even got to a final, so that was tough. And again, combination of factors in terms of the team, me personally in terms of how I played, and we went through a lot of barren years, and as you say, it wasn't until the kind of mid-2000s where we kind of started to improve. We won a few Leinsters, I think, starting in 2005. We won
bet Laois that year too.
We did. I do believe that. Yeah. And as I was saying,
I have
a Laois connection. My nanny, Lord rest her, she was 101 when she passed, but she was from Laois. She was from a place called Rathdowney.
Good hurling strongholds.
Yeah. So
County,
so that was interesting when we played them, and obviously with Ross Munley here in the college as well. But yeah, we got to the stage where we were competitive then, winning Leinsters, but we couldn't quite get to an All-Ireland final. And again, it took until 2011, and unfortunately my time was up in 2009, so didn't get to experience it as a player again.
Right, well, before we go on, we're going to get to know you a little bit better. Greg has a bit of a quiz there just to see what's the man behind the football, I suppose.
So these they're a bit random. It's a bit of sporting, it's a bit of general. Just we're going to see if we can get to know you a bit better.
Okay.
So firstly, Jason, tea or coffee?
I've converted to coffee now.
Right. And what kind of coffee is your choice?
I wouldn't be too particular.
I've
probably gone a step beyond instant, but I do.
You wouldn't consider yourself a connoisseur or
I'm
snob
definitely
now?
not, but I prefer plunge now. I am getting snobbier.
I don't know what the staff room's like here in DCU, but don't go to Spar for the coffee. It tastes like dirty dishwasher.
Okay.
So
hope Dave isn't listening. I was in there today.
The Helix is lovely though. Go to the Helix.
Right.
What did you want to be when you were a kid?
A sports person, I suppose, a Dublin footballer probably, and didn't think much further than that.
Very good. And I suppose at the time, of course, you were split between basketball and soccer too, so
yeah,
was it ever a split up between, would I like to be a professional soccer player?
Yeah, well, when I was younger, I would have played a number of different sports. Particularly, I played basketball with St Vincent's, who are amalgamated with the college now. I went to school in Glasnevin, St Vincent's Glasnevin. Played a lot of basketball and really enjoyed it. And I would have played a lot of soccer as well, and played with UCD and Shamrock Rovers League of Ireland. So there were opportunities when I was growing up, maybe of pursuing a kind of soccer career, but I think there was always some attachment and connection to GAA. And again, no different in life. I think you have to have that emotional connection as well as the kind of motivation from other sources. So definitely, from my point of view, it was always about playing for Dublin.
Great.
I think you set a standard early on in multiple sports as far as being a young player coming in, because in your first season with UCD, you were the top goal scorer that year. Is that something that you had been conscious of going in, or was it just you found yourself in that position?
I just found myself in that position again, and I was lucky enough to do an autobiography at the end of last year, and going back to that time, and kind of particularly in my teen years where I was playing, and I was literally going from soccer matches to basketball matches. I played hurling down in Cork, and it was literally, I'd be at Irish basketball training in Dublin, and I'd get in the back of a car to play a hurling match in Cork that afternoon. That's how bizarre and crazy it was. So again, it was never kind of being the best player or records, never really, it wasn't something that I was concerned of. I just loved playing sport. Again, we all get into different things for a number of reasons. What I loved about sport was that I was just accepted no matter how I looked. Obviously I looked different. My father was from Hong Kong, so when I grew up, that created challenges for me, because I was treated kind of differently in some aspects. So I always found sport was somewhere there where I was accepted.
Outlet,
and
suppose,
it was an outlet, and I just loved it. And I think the better I got, the less people cared how I looked. So that was probably the motivation by doing well in soccer or basketball. So I was kind of lucky in that sense, but I never really had a kind of grand plan about whether I wanted to be the best soccer player or the best GA player I could be.
You knew sport, it was going to be along the lines of sport in some in some capacity.
Yeah, I just loved it. I just loved the outlet I had, the friends I made. Again, I was lucky enough to be on an international basketball team, and we travelled throughout the world and that, and I like still my best friends are buddies from St. Vincent's. So yeah, it just gave me a great outlet, and hence part of the appeal of working with DCU. There's such an emphasis on sport here in the college, and I know at first hand the opportunities I got from playing sport, and it's great to be in a position to kind of share that message with potential students and potential partners of the college.
And just on that, is there anything in particular that you pass on to a young member, say a young intercounty footballer coming to DCU, balancing work life, academic life, and obviously their sporting life? Any one piece of advice you picked up over the years?
I think you need to know why you're doing it. I think nowadays the I suppose the commitment of GAA and a lot of sports has gotten so high. I think sometimes you forget why you're doing it, and like you always go back to when you were a little kid. I see you with your hurleys and your sliotar there. You were probably out pucking a ball today because you loved it, and you can't, no matter what level of sport, or even if you're in work, no matter what level you're at, you gotta love it and you gotta enjoy it. So I think that's first and foremost. If you have a graw, if the connection is still there, you will do what you need to do to kind of succeed. But that would be my advice, and it's important. I think the big challenge nowadays is not to kind of overload young boys and girls that are playing sport, because like you want to ensure that they love it in 10 years time or 15 years
just
time.
longevity of it, and keep them involved, I suppose, over a period of time.
Exactly, yeah. And sometimes it can be consumed by winning and success. Like you start now at a failure, and like some of the kind of the commitment that they have to have for that, I think you could question. But anyway, that's probably for another day. Back to the questions.
So 3 guests, living or dead, that you'd invite to a dinner party.
Oh God, they'd probably be sporting anyway.
Okay.
Like my hero growing up would be Michael Jordan, so
Okay.
he'd probably be
Go on
there.
the list, yeah.
A guy that's back in vogue that I was always fascinated by was Tiger Woods.
Okay.
In terms of when he was in his pomp, where he was, and again I suppose the challenge of being the best sportsman but not necessarily the best human being, and that whole dynamic is kind of interesting to me. God, who else would I be interested in? I suppose it kind of passed, and in terms of historical, JFK, in terms of
Someone else actually said Nancy Kennedy.
Jackie
Kennedy, sorry.
Right, yeah. Well, again, I suppose I'm really fascinated by that connection of people, and you look at what the Kennedys mean to obviously Ireland and the connection they had in the States, and you only have to look at the connection that continues with the States and America. So I suppose that and he kind of set, in my opinion or in my thoughts, he would have been one of the trendsetters or groundbreakers there. So yeah, he'd probably be
fronting the line for the Irish abroad, I suppose.
Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly.
It's interesting you mentioned Michael Jordan there. Are you still a big fan of the NBA now?
I am. I when I can, I'd follow it. I think the NBA went through a phase where they hadn't got the superstars, but now they have like Steph Curry, they've LeBron, they've some really competitive teams. I was in Boston there recently, and seeing the Celtics playing against the Warriors was great. So it's really competitive. You have the Rockets as well. So yeah, I love sport. I love all sport, but yeah, I'd be still
a fan myself, yeah.
Would you? Yeah. What's your team?
I follow the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Okay.
Mainly because Russell Westbrook is my favourite player.
Right.
I'd be kind of like of the mind that he moved to a different team, I'd support that team.
Okay,
I'm kind of following the player rather than the.
Jeez, that's
the
not like
team
you in
itself.
Dublin following the Dublin footballers around, is it? Anyways, moving on. Jason, who would you like to play you in a film? Now, when we had Ross on, Ross nominated his Leash teammate Gary Walsh.
Okay.
And in the Dublin team, that would have.
Well, I suppose Bernard Brogan would probably have that star charisma.
Yeah, he does. He's got the jawline for it as well, doesn't he?
But in terms of favourite actors, I'd be a big Matt Damon fan. So I
very
suppose
good.
He'd be top of the list.
So you actually, our next question was your sporting idol or your role model, but you said Michael Jordan. Is there anyone maybe on a local level?
Role models, again, there's probably people that were coaches and influences in my life that would be massive role models. So I'd always quote Joey Boylan, who would be the coach of St. Vincent's basketball, doesn't live too far away, and the amount of time he devoted in us when we were kids in terms of our training and travelling around the place, he just gave his life to us really. So he would be, in terms of role model, he'd be a massive one. And then from a playing point of view, Desi Farrell would have been in my school growing up, and he was the idol of the school, and to end up playing with him was great, and he was a great mentor both on and off the field.
I suppose with the GPA then as well, he obviously had a lot of work with the GPA, and
exactly.
He did great work there.
Yeah, and I did an MBA here a few years ago, and that was through a GPA scholarship. So again, I was the beneficiary of what Desi and the GPA, the work that they've been doing and continue to do. So I do understand and see how important the Gaelic Players Association can be in inter-county male and female their
and
sports
I suppose
career.
In recent years it's taken a new role, or even a more, I suppose, more authoritative in its role, I suppose, especially with the likes of schedules, and I suppose how inter-county teams are becoming more and more towards that professional line. So I suppose the GPA, they really are kind of really to the forefront of GAA at the minute. Yeah,
well, there's a couple of challenges, and obviously we know in terms of the fixtures and the structures, it's a bit chaotic, and it probably will continue to be. It is a big challenge, and the GPA certainly have an input in that. But I think going back to the inception of the GPA, they didn't really know what they were at the start. Did they want to be professional, or what were they looking for? But I think now, and again, not offhand, I think it's the vision of being the best they can be both on and off the field, and putting the support and services around players. I think that's a great vision, and I think it's a great message. So I think people can identify with that, and I've no doubt in terms of a sporting academy, I'm sure DCU are trying to aspire to that kind of support, that it's not only about what an athlete or a student does on the pitch, it's about what they're doing in their education, and then when they leave the college in terms of employability.
It's interesting that you say that, because Ross actually touched on that. Ross was over the freshers team for a number of years here in DCU. What they did at the start of every year for their gear, their kit came to £100. Basically the lads had to go out and fundraise that €100 amongst the community themselves. If a football went missing at training or a match, everyone had to pitch in €2 to pay for a replacement. And basically there was supports there for them academic wise if their training workload, their match workload was too much. But they really seemed like they were trying to build a community around it.
Right.
So that's starting at freshers level. So I'm sure I probably owes to our Sigerson record the last couple of years. So Jason, moving on. Name a song you hate. Is there any song that just really grinds your gears?
Green and red and mayo.
I don't mind
Lovely
that one. I'm very general when it comes to music.
Okay.
I just like music. I don't have any particular genre. I'm not a music snob, so there's nothing that kind of.
Someone said Pharrell Williams Happy.
Oh yeah,
just
now that you say it, because with Despicable Me as well, I'd have kids that would have gone to that. So yeah, it did.
I'm
get
sure
to
you're
the
sick of hearing it in there.
Where it was kind of good at the time, and then it was just ugh.
Your ideal weekend. All things going to plan.
Weekend.
You have the weekend off from the footballers. You have the kids are away. How do you spend it?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, can you qualify it? Is this with family or without? Because my ideal weekend, it mightn't include the family, probably vice versa.
Yeah, you have a babysitter for the weekend.
Okay, well, I suppose if it's somewhere relaxing would be nice. We'd like to get down to Wexford and that, so somewhere coastal potentially. Maybe playing a bit of golf, and certainly watching a bit of golf.
Getting a few holes.
Yeah, and maybe just socialising quietly, just letting the world go by. It wouldn't be anything too wild.
Good. And so, would you rather win the Euro Millions or get the opportunity to lift Sam with Dublin as a player once again?
Well, it would be the latter. I think, and again, I've been very lucky, as we mentioned earlier, as a player I never got to do it. I've been involved with the management team or the backroom team for the last 3 years, and I've been lucky enough to experience that. And it's for me it's been very special to be able to do that. So again, we'd have ambitions to do that again this year, hopefully all going well. So yeah, that's still the dream of mine.
Still the dream.
So to be honest, it's not really whether I'm a player or not, just
there in
involved.
some capacity.
Yeah, it's been great. So
great. And I think that concludes our get to know you quiz.
Right, yeah. So we touched on it there that you obviously played football for Dublin, you played soccer for UCD and I believe Sligo Rovers.
Shamrock
Rovers, sorry. And you also played basketball. So how did you go about making the decision to make a commitment?
At what age did you maybe settle on a specific sport, or was there a time that it came that, okay, I'm going to have to pick?
Yeah, well, I think as I mentioned, my teen years were a bit crazy because I was only focused on sport. And again, probably part of the appeal of working with the Educational Trust was that I had opportunities from an education point of view. I was on a soccer scholarship with UCD, but never saw the kind of the benefit or the value of it. I was from Finglas. College wasn't something that everyone kind of aspired to or went through, so it wasn't something that I thought would have any real value to me because I could only see the present. And with that, I just kind of went from team to team, sport to sport, without a bigger picture. Now on the other side of life and where I am, I see the absolute value that education can give to any boy or girl, and obviously with the access program here in DCU, which is the biggest access program in the country, it will be great again to maybe meet some potential students here, meeting former alums or graduates with their companies to kind of share that story and share that message and how they can assist kind of young boys and girls on their learning. So I didn't kind of make a decision until probably my late teens, early 20s, where I was getting to the stage where I probably wasn't doing myself justice in any game. I was kind of wasn't doing as well as I could, and the levels of commitment were getting greater. We know now what the commitment in GAA is like. It's pretty full on.
I actually said to Colin when we were having a few pucks earlier, I was like, Dublin footballers must be training tonight if Jason's able to meet us.
Well, they're off for the month. They're off for the month of April,
yeah.
Because of we're finishing the league and they're with their clubs. So yeah, it's great that we
Dublin
have
Championship this weekend.
with Dublin Championship. So we won't see them till the end of April. I am involved with the Dublin Minors, but we trained last night and we're tomorrow night. So yeah, it worked.
We had
out.
the night off. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to Annam the concerts in the Heathens as well. So
there's actually Joanne Cantwell's tomorrow, Trailblazers in Sport.
Yeah,
that's right.
She's delivering the keynote speech, and then there'll be some networking afterwards, so you'll catch us there if you're around.
Oh, very good. Well, Lindsay Peate, who's one of the guest speakers, she's now with the Irish rugby team, but she played GAA for Dublin, she played basketball for Ireland, and she played soccer for Ireland. So
you've crossed paths a couple of times over the years.
Yeah, but that's an amazing achievement to think she's done that in 4 sports. So that should be a great few hours.
And so to bring it back to that choice between the 3 sports, did the professional aspect of either two of soccer or basketball ever tempt you away from Gaelic football?
With basketball, I had opportunities to go on to a high school to go, and again at that stage, the best basketballers in Ireland, the kind of goal was to maybe get a Division 1 college, and that was the level. And at the time when people were saying, well, I had the potential of maybe getting to a Division 1 college, but again, you're kind of setting up life over there. You're going there for obviously 4 or 5 years, and you're probably going to get your employment over there. So that didn't really appeal. And then from a soccer point of view, I kind of had a few trials. I actually went over to the New England Revolution, who they're based in just outside Boston. Went over to a training camp over in Orlando with them. Thought about it, but again, the distance and the travel, it wasn't for me. That there was always that connection with the GAA. So I did kind of explore those sports, but it all came back to the GAA. And again, I was very lucky to win an All Ireland at 19 years of age. I had a lot of disappointment then after it, and I suppose from a motivation point of view, I wanted to show that I was dedicated and I wanted to really succeed with Dublin again. It didn't happen and it was disappointing, but as I said, it's nice to been able to go full circle, that I'm still involved and we've had a bit of success.
I'm sure there's many grateful that you did make that choice in the end.
I don't know, that goal. 95, I think it was Leinster semi-final.
Yeah,
the bootless goal.
Yeah, well,
that was against Laois.
Exactly. Yeah, that was my first game.
Who passed you the ball that day?
It was a Mr. Jim Gavin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only realised that we were looking back on the clip there and the commentary.
Yeah, he was a sub himself, 21, Jim.
Yeah, it's in colour, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah.
So I think
Marty.
Marty.
In Ireland at that stage.
Marty, I think, did the commentary on
He
it
did,
as well.
yeah.
So Marty Morrissey. So yeah, it was great, and again there was some great times. Again, it would have been nice to have a bit more success, but I think the older you get and you're on the other side, you don't judge it by whether you win or lose games. You know, you look at the amount of dedication and the fact that you're willing to sacrifice for so long, and I think that goes from a Dublin footballer to a Laois footballer to a Leitrim hurler. If they're willing to kind of commit, they can take great pride from it, and I suppose that's the beauty of the GAA. I've met a lot of people that have an affinity to me through GAA, and I suppose that's something that's unique to the country, so I'm very much happy I went the journey and the road I did.
And maybe you didn't have too much success for Dublin, but you
in comparison just to latter years, but I think 7 Leinster titles and an All-Ireland isn't bad return.
It's and listen, I'm not going to knock it, but I suppose when you put it into context of the lads now have, I think, what is it, 4 in the last 6 years or something. It was just different times, but yeah, it doesn't take away. Like, and believe me, we celebrated each and every one of those medals.
I'm sure. But what I was going to say was that you did actually enjoy some success at club level with Nafina, 3 in a row Dublin championships. What was that like, and how big an influence does club football have on reaching that
pinnacle, I suppose?
I had a kind of unique club journey. Most boys or girls, they're growing up in their parish, and that's their club and their identity. Because I grew up in Finglas, I went up to Erin's Isle a couple of times when I was younger, but it wasn't until I was in secondary school in Glasnevin that I actually kind of played with a club up here in Dublin. As I mentioned earlier, I used to play down in Cork in a small little town parish called Ballyhay, and it was mainly hurling. So I ended up playing with Nafina from about 17 or 18 for a number of years, and we won 3 championships in a row. I think we're the last club team to do it in Dublin, and it was great. And again, we didn't get the ultimate success. We got beaten in an All-Ireland club final by Crossmaglen, who were the kingpins at that time, and then we were beaten, I think, in 2 other Leinster club finals. But again, as much as that was disappointing, you look at the nursery started around that time in Nafina, and Nafina obviously as a club have thrived. They're obviously in the spotlight at the moment through the Metrolink and that.
That's interesting. We were gonna briefly touch on that. Do you have any views on how that's going? That's unraveling at the moment. Yeah,
well, obviously I can understand that from the city is expanding, and we do need the logistics. But again, as people who are familiar with the area, like Movie Road and that pitch is like the heartbeat of the club. And as I just mentioned, when we were training for county finals, that was the start of the nursery. And to think that the nursery has gone from there to, I think Nafina won 3 minor titles in a row. The membership is thriving. The nurseries are thriving. To take that out of the heartbeat of the club, I think is going to be a massive challenge. And hopefully they will be able to come up with another solution.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, it would be horrible to see a pitch with such tradition, such history be torn through. So hopefully there'll be
just an epicenter of a community.
Yeah,
really, again, and I suppose for DCU here, Johnny Cooper is obviously a Nafina man himself.
They had their own demonstration there in the Helix last week, and there was a massive turnout as well. Myself and Greg were just on our way home, and at first I thought, what are loads of Roscommon?
Yeah, we thought they were Roscommon. I wasn't wearing my glasses.
The jersey was very similar. It was only until we saw the name on the back that said Nafina that we realised what it was all about. But like you said earlier on, you brought out your autobiography. What was the motivation for that? Did anybody influence you into doing it?
It was something that I'd been asked to do kind of towards the latter end of my career, and then when I retired, and I suppose blatantly being honest about it, I never felt I couldn't see why I would do it, because I felt like I'd lost so many games. Why would anyone read my autobiography? And again, a big reason why I decided to do it was through the MBA here in DCU. We did a module on organisational behaviour, and it kind of forces you to look back, reflect back on how you got to where you got to, and that was really it meant a big thing to me to go back and look, as I mentioned, some of the challenges I had from the way I looked and I suppose the way my journey kind of meandered through. It was really good to have a look at how I got there, and I suppose when I went through that process, I kind of said, well, there might be something I can add value to people that potentially have challenges, like when they feel that they look different or they have low self-esteem. They might get something out of my story that they can resonate with and might make them feel better. So that was probably a big part of the motivation. And then the second part was just I was very lucky to have the story I had in terms of GAA. I know it wasn't about my football ability alone. Obviously I looked different. There was an air of novelty and curiosity throughout that first year in '95, and again I realise now that people had a lot of love for me either in Dublin or outside Dublin. So
well, you certainly became a cult hero amongst the Dub supporters, and I suppose '95, I don't think the hill was there in '95, but
it was,
it?
yeah,
it was,
they were doing a bit of work. Obviously, it was the old Hogan stand, right. But and again, I love the hill.
I think you're synonymous with like any Dublin supporter from just JO.
Exactly, yeah. And again, it was nice to share all the good times. It was tough kind of sharing some of the tougher times, but again it was nice to be able to put that out there, and I'd like to think it's a good story both from a sporting point of view but also a non-sporting point of view.
And I suppose just before we move on to the latter stages of your career, we might touch on your professional career. So you're here in DCU now. Nero, do you want to tell us what it's all about and how you came into it?
Yeah, so I'm an associate director with the Educational Trust. The Educational Trust is the fundraising office of DCU. So again, the main focus will be to support projects and campaigns like the Access Programme, the sporting facilities, and some of the academic projects that are happening around the college. So my motivation, and again, when I reflected back on doing the book, you're kind of looking to see where you want to go in the future, and part of that for me was giving back. When I look back, I appreciate the opportunity sport presented to me, and I also appreciated although I was very late to it, but education, going back and doing an MBA here in DCU made a big impact on me. It gave me the confidence to kind of look at things other than sporting opportunities, and I was very appreciative of that, and I wanted to give as many boys and girls the opportunity to do that. So hence the inspiration to get involved. So I'm literally only in the door a couple of weeks. It's a new and a young team, so getting to know those guys, but it's important that the Educational Trust, it might be perceived as just kind of fundraising with a bucket and all that, but I think, and I'm sure Ross has shared this, it's important that anyone that's gone through the doors of DCU, that the connection still remains. Those graduates are going to go on into companies, and they're going to be the flagship for the college going forward. I think we're very lucky to have some great flagship bearers with Bree McGrath and Derek Keogh. I think they do exceptional work for the college, and it's important that DCU stay in contact with anyone that graduates here, and it's important that the students that they're here now, that they do realise that we do need their support in the future no matter what they go on and do.
Fantastic. And so we'll just we're coming close to the end of the programme, but just before we do, you were winding down your career kind of late 2009, early 2010, when I was actually starting to get involved with the Dublin football.
All the way from Waterford, yeah.
With my dad, who was from Skerries in North County Dublin.
Is that even Dublin?
Yeah, it's
County Dublin.
Fine, won't be happy to hear you say that now.
True, I suppose. Yeah.
But was there any certain trigger that made you think this is the end, or was it a slow kind of slow process?
I think you were convinced to not hang up the boots at one stage.
I might have been for a year, but the second year it was the other way around.
Okay.
I think I was convinced to give them up. So again, yeah, like for me, it was I was surplus to requirements, and that's the way it was. So after 2009, we finished that year playing Kerry, and it was known as the Startled Earwigs. I experienced that game for all of, I think, 20 minutes. We were bet out the gate, and then the next year the manager felt that I was no longer needed in the panel, so that was tough to deal with. It took a few years before I actually accepted that. I still kind of trained with getting back in mind, but it never happened. But the one thing that I look back on and take a great pride on was that I never gave up on Dublin. Dublin gave up on me at that time, and I still trained and prepared as if I was going to play in Croke Park again. And I suppose the whole circle was completed when Jim, I was very lucky enough to be asked by Jim to get involved with the management team post 2014, and the last 3 years have been great and really good.
That changing of the guard has led to the success of this team, so it worked out maybe for the best in the end.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great. I soldiered with a lot of guys. You mentioned Brian Cullen, Bernard Brogan, Stephen Cluxton. All these guys had some really bad defeats, and Paul Flynn, another guy, and I knew they had it in them to be successful. So even personally, there was obviously a tinge of disappointment when Dublin won in 2011, but overwhelming. I was so happy to see those guys succeed, and I can only be so proud, and to see what they've gone on and done, I'm just so proud of them, and hopefully they'll continue to do it.
I'm sure there'll be more success to come. Before we wrap up, we're going to test a little bit of your GAA knowledge now,
okay,
just to see how much you've retained over the years.
Right.
So Greg,
I'm a bit afraid because he was rattling off the early 90s Dublin. Yeah,
oh, really?
So yeah, I feel he's going to be good at it.
Yeah, we'll crack
Okay.
on and see how he does.
So, Jason, Fratherfield is located in which county?
Waterford.
Waterford. There you go.
I was a big fan of the Waterford hurlers. Ken McGrath, John Milan, Dan Shannon. Like they were mavericks. They just played
figures,
the game. So they were my second hurling team after Dublin.
How many championship goals have you scored? Now, disclaimer from us on this: we discussed prior to coming on there that GAA statistics they're very hard to find, and concrete ones.
All right.
So we've done as best as we could.
There's an asterisk beside these statistics, and that asterisk says Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Okay, so
these ones in particular, because you were pre 2002, which is when that website
we have a website that we used for statistics, specifically with Ross's interview. We don't know how accurate they are. These ones came from Wikipedia.
Okay.
So we're open to you correcting us.
So I could say I scored a
like
shed load of goals.
57 goals in 5 appearances.
2002. Yeah. I'm going to say, probably if I thought about it, I'd probably get it. Yeah, so I'm going to say probably 6.
Oh,
you're a bit too modest there according to our stats.
7.
10.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a surprise.
Ross's was 7, which I was surprised with.
I thought it'd be more.
Yeah, I would have thought, but no, Ross's was.
According to our statistics, you have 1061 in championship appearances.
Yeah.
In 63 appearances.
Yeah.
We had a bit of, was it 62 or 63 was our...
Yeah, but I think it might have been 62 plus a sub appearance.
Right.
Or possibly. We're not
there's a few subs appearances, probably more than that, but I'll take 10 goals.
Your highest scoring championship appearance, who it was against, and what did you score? How much did you score?
If it was 1-4,
it was.
Yeah,
well, then
yeah.
It was Roscommon against
it was
former manager Tommy Carr.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't happen very often. That's why I know.
In Croker as well.
Yeah.
If there was a transfer system in the GAA, what player from which county would you draft in?
Ooh.
Will you go past or present here?
We'll take any answer.
We'll
open it up.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So past, probably Peter Canavan. I just because he was obviously same in stature as myself, a lot more skillful. Just a really nice player. So he'd be one that I'd have a lot of admiration for. Or Maurice Fitz, because if he was with us, he wouldn't have kicked the side and beat us. So
that's very true,
I suppose modern, I might go with Rory Began. And that would be on the basis that as much as we'd love Stephen to go on forever, he probably can't. And I've been really impressed with Rory Began over the last few years in terms of how he's developing his game.
Very good. Now, the last time Nafina won the Dublin Senior Championship before 1999, how many times have Nafina won the Dublin Senior Football Championship before 99, and how many championships in total? Now, we obviously know you're saying Oliver Plunkett's now, but we said we keep it with Nafina.
I just remember, I think Nafina won in 69 and 79, so I'm going to say the two others, but I remember it was all the nines, so we won 3, so that's 3 and 2 is 5.
Well, you're right with 5, and 1979 was the last time before.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So I told you, he's
knocking it out of the park.
Who did you make your championship debut against, and where?
I made it against Louth down in Navan.
You did.
I remember that day very
Talton.
well. I came on as a sub, and I was welcomed to the game very quickly with a swift knee into the ribs.
Who were you marking that day?
It was a guy, Garrett something. He was originally from Armagh, big lad. But as I said, I got fouled, and he welcomed me with a nice knee into the ribs.
Any pre-game superstitions?
Not really, no. I used to like to rest before it, so I'd like to have a power nap or close my eyes. The lads used to give me a bit of slagging about that, but I used to try to be nice and relaxed going into games.
No left sock before right sock, no lucky pair of shorts, or
no, I was never that precious.
Right. And toughest opponent. Well, we won't narrow it to one if one doesn't instantly come to mind, but
too many too many. Unfortunately, some. And again, I look back and some of the guys I played. So for me, you had Darren Fay, Colin Coyle. For Kerry, you had Mark O'Shea, you had Seamus Moynihan, some of the Northern boys, Ryan McMenamin, Chris Lawn. So the list is endless. Unfortunately,
plenty of guys gave you nightmares over the years.
Yeah, exactly.
And then finally, do you have a favourite piece of memorabilia from over the years?
Not really.
Would you have been one for collecting the memorabilia? You know, maybe hanging on to your jerseys or anything like that? Yeah,
well, I have them all. They're all in attic somewhere. I have kind of my Nafina, the jerseys, the 3 championship wins. I gave my first jersey, Dublin jersey, to the club in Ballyhay down in Cork. But I swapped my jersey in the semi-final and the final. I still have them. So I'd have a lot of kind of memorabilia, but at the same time I wouldn't have it displayed in the house. So.
Is there any one in particular that maybe has made its way to the mantelpiece, or even a medal? Or
no, I think the kids made sure of that. So in fairness, in one of the rooms there's a few pictures, so it's nice to have a few pictures. And someone gave me 3 photos of the goal without the boot against Laois, and it's really nice just before, during and after, so that's a nice piece. Sorry to rub that in.
It's okay, I'll take it on the chin this time.
Unfortunately, we'd love to talk on and on to Jason, but he has a place to be and we have a studio to give up to the next show. Jason, thanks a million for coming on. You've been a great guest. I hope you enjoyed your in-conversation with Experience. Yeah, and if anyone's listening, please make sure you say hello passing me by, because I'm a newbie into the
Give him a
campus.
Welcome to DCU.
Right, so for myself, Colin MacDonald, and my co-host Greg Mulhall, this has been In Conversation with Jason Sherlock, and we'll see you next time, 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 and we'll see you next time.